Welcome to this special presentation, Classically Black. I'm Karen Smyles. From its beginning, classical music has always been associated with society's elite. It has been believed that this genre of music was no place for blacks. We couldn't possibly perform or even appreciate classical music because its essence was so far removed from the black experience. Gaining admission into this most highly respected style of music has not been easy. In this special presentation, we'll focus on the achievements of black composers, musicians, and conductors, both past and present, who have tried to change that. Now we bring you the first half of our one-hour special, Classically Black. You will learn where the roots of blacks in classical music began and find out about the many struggles that had to be overcome.
In Europe, in the theater in Vienna, the Burgtheater, in the smaller theater, I was looking the orchestra pit and I saw, you know, a man of color in the orchestra. And of course, he was embarrassed that I should go and make a big thing of his being in that orchestra. I mean, why shouldn't I, in other words? I'm a good player. I auditioned, and he really was a little surprised that I made such a big thing out of and embarrassed.
We've been told that we don't have enough experience. And since this neglect or the inability to get jobs in a symphony orchestra, it's like you have to have experience, and yet you have to get the job before you can get experience. And it's a very frustrating thing, and it has always been something that has stymied the best of us.
After Manus, I went to the Philharmonic, and when I went into the orchestra, I was the only person in the orchestra who was not a white male.
Blacks were able to establish a presence in classical music as early on as the 18th century, and not just as instrumentalists, but also as composers. With the help of concert pianist Richard Alston, we will share with you the wonders of the works of several black composers. The first significant black artist in classical music was Chevalier de Saint-Georges. Born in Guadeloupe to the island's governor and an African woman, Saint-Georges was European educated. He studied the violin and became revered for his skills on the instrument. Ultimately, he became a widely respected composer, and listening to his work, it's easy to understand why. Born in England, Samuel Coleridge Taylor studied at the Royal College of Music and later earned international acclaim for his compositions. In 1904, he was enthusiastically welcomed to the United States and even enjoyed an invitation to the White House by President Theodore Roosevelt. It was the first time a black classical musician had been openly received. The music of Samuel Coleridge Taylor is described as inspirational and is evident in this selection titled Deep River, one of the composer's famed Negro melodies. of the 1900s brought with it several talented black musicians who had received training in the finest schools and conservatories in the world. Clarence Cameron White began his career as a violinist. He studied at the Oberlin Conservatory of Music. After studying composition with Samuel Coleridge Taylor, White began composing. He was probably best known for the music he wrote for the theater. In 1931, he traveled to Haiti to do research for the opera Owanga, for which he wrote the music. Still, this highly educated and accomplished musician could not escape labels. Another composer to come out of Oberlin in 1908 was Robert Nathaniel Dett, who began his study on the piano. He valued the folk music of his race and was one of the first black composers to combine classical music and spirituals. The most highly acclaimed black composer to date is the man known as the Dean of African American Composers, William Grant Still. Born in Woodville, Mississippi, he pursued a professional career against his mother's wishes. After studying at Oberlin, Grant often worked in popular music. Here we see him playing in the pit orchestra for the musical Shuffle Along in 1921 with several others who went on to find success in classical music, and one who made a name for himself in popular music, pianist U.B. Blake. But classical music never disappeared from the life of William Grant Still. His Afro-American Symphony became the first major work by a black composer to be performed by a major orchestra when the Rochester Philharmonic did so in 1931. Listening to this work titled Summerland, it's easy to place William Grant Still among the greatest composers of any race.
A man who earlier in his career showed considerable imagination and originality, and who then retreated slowly into a kind of thing that would sound beautiful at the Boston Pops, but not pop music, but music of sort of semi-classical in a way. He became a musical reactionary, but you have to admire what he does because it's so beautifully put together.
We'll continue with more of Classically Black after this.